Good morning or good afternoon. My name's Phil Jones, and we're here to talk about high quality wireless audio, or just basically multi zone music, how to get great quality multi zone music, whether it's connected via wire or connected wirelessly. My name is Phil Jones. I'm the Director of Training for Sound United, and our brands represent Denon Marantz, Class A Definitive Polk, and Boston Acoustics. So I get asked a lot about wireless music. So I wanted to take a little time and answer your questions. So I am sitting here, like you, sheltering in place in my media room with my rack of equipment that you see behind me, which includes several wired music distribution zones. So we're going to take a little time and talk about the best way to set up a wireless or even any kind of multi-zone music system to get the maximum quality from it. And so let's get started.
Hey, Phil, before you do
Yes.
that, let's remind people that the chat function is read only, so they should put any questions they have in the questions
Yes.
here.
Thank you, Jim. So joining me on the call is Jennifer Mash and Jim Crowley. So we are the training team for Sound United. And so please, if you have any questions, please put the questions in the question area, and myself or Jim will answer along the way, either during the presentation or after. So please make sure you put those questions in there. So the reason why I want to bring this up is um, Sound United offers a system called HEOS, stands for Home Entertainment Operating System, and this allows you to have enjoy high quality music in any room in your home. And we offer a variety of solutions to achieve that. So whether you're looking for an AVR or a soundbar or wireless speakers or even custom integration pieces, we have a solution for you, and they give you a tons of flexibilities and capabilities. The one that I kind of want to point out today real quickly before we get into tips and tricks is we are launching a new set of HEOS enabled wireless speakers, the Denon Home series. And this replaces the HEOS speakers that you may have remembered before. Originally, they were the HEOS 1, the HEOS 3, the HEOS 5, and the HEOS 7. The Denon Home speakers replace those. So now you're going to have a Denon Home 150, 250, and 350. Has all the great features that were built into the HEOS speakers in the past, but then even more. So the first thing, of course, it's got HEOS built in, so you have access to all those streaming services. AirPlay 2. So it's really easy to utilize these speakers in an Apple environment for those people who are into AirPlay technologies. Of course, high res, so you can enjoy above CD quality from several different services that are available today. It also has a USB input, so you can literally plug a USB into one and not only play it through that one speaker, stream it to all of the other HEOS-enabled devices in your home. New for this year, we've added proximity sensor buttons on the top. So basically, if you run your hand along the top of of the speaker, those buttons are normally hidden until it senses your hand, and they will light up. And on there is a pause, a play, a volume up, a volume down. And this year we've even added presets, so you can take them and you can make presets almost like you would have on an AM/FM radio, where you could find your favorite playlist and then you can actually store them under one of the presets. Depending on the speaker, increases the amount of presets. For example, the the Denon Home 150 and 250 have 3 presets, and the Denon 350 has 6 presets, which are called quick select buttons. So if you look, there's 3 models, like I said. There used to be 4 in the old HEOS lineup. Now there's 3: the 150, 250, and the 350. 150 is a improved version of the HEOS 1. The 250 kind of replaces the HEOS 5, and the 350 is the replacement for the 7. All of these sound significantly better because they've been sound tuned by the Denon engineers, and they play louder, they have better bass, the cosmetic is beautiful. They're a great solution for that person looking for a high quality wireless speaker. In addition, we have tons of other HEOS enabled products available in our lineup. And depending, and this is basically gives you as a customer flexibility, or your client's flexibility. I always say there's two types of music out there: passive, people who listen to music passively, and people who listen to music actively. Passively would be you're sitting around and you're cooking, or you're entertaining, or you're outside barbecuing, where the music is there as background, something nice and relaxing as background. Then you get into what's called active listening. Active listening means you're going to basically sit down, turn on a rack like the one I have behind me, and play some music. So whether you're really dedicated to sitting there with your lemonade or your beer and listening to a piece of music, that is active listening. Whenever you're listening to something active, you notice the fine details more, which means you want a better, higher quality audio solution. And Sound United will offer that to you. So we have our music players, our network players for that person that wants to add it to an existing two-channel or surround sound system, and all of our networked in and Marantz AVRs have it built in. These little compact systems are great if you're looking for a nice sounding system for like an office. You can have one of these in an office with a pair of bookshelf speakers and then with a very, very good quality system. The goal is to give you options. In addition, we support the majority of the major music services out there: Amazon, Tidal, Spotify, Pandora, um, all of those things. And for now, will there be maybe a service out there that we don't support? So maybe you're looking for death metal polka. That may not be available on one of our services, but 99.9% of what you're looking at, we should have that music there, and it's millions and millions and millions of songs. In addition, if someone you can also cast to it via AirPlay 2, and you also have the ability to use Bluetooth version 5. Somebody asked me what that was, and Jim looked it up for me. Thank you, Jim. Version 5. So you can Bluetooth to your buddy can come to your house and Bluetooth from his phone to your speaker system. We say we prefer that you use the services that are built in because the quality will be better. But if you just need to get the music from your phone to your HEOS speaker, the Bluetooth is a great solution. With a HEOS system, you can have up to 32 zones going, 8 different streams going, with 16 zones playing at the same time. You can do things and the room synchronization is perfect. You no echo between the different rooms. And you also, if you want to, you can start off with one speaker, HEOS 150 or 250, 350. And then if you just in a room, and then if you decide you want to go bigger, you can buy a second speaker. So you can go from one 250s for one 250 to a pair of 250s in a room, and end up with perfect stereo pairing. And you end up with great sound stage and the great stereo imaging you would expect from a pair of bookshelves. So it's a really, really cool option. The one thing that I tell people all the time, and I've learned this, is when you walk into a restaurant and you're listening to music passively, you don't want the music to be super loud. And a lot of times I go into houses, and if you look at my house, I have one large room that is my kitchen, living room, and dining room. And it's probably 1,200 to 1,400 square feet for all that space. Now I could put one Denon 350 in the back in the room because it's a pretty impressive speaker, and play it super loud and hear it in the kitchen. But if I do that, the people in the living room, it's too loud. So a lot of times it's better for you to use 3 small speakers versus one large one. So you could put a small 150 in the kitchen like I did, a 250 in the dining room, and a 350 in the living room. And by playing all of them in sync, you could have a nice level that's evenly dispersed throughout the entire room. In addition, multiple speakers is going to give you more even bass, and you don't have to drive them as hard. So they sound better, the bass is better, and it's far more enjoyable if you're for a large space. So multiple speakers in different locations is always going to be better than one big speaker. And so keep that in mind. In my house, I actually have a total of 15 zones in my particular house. Now, um, some of those zones are wired, and some of them are wireless. But in total, I have a total of 15 zones. So I'm going to share with you, as we go along, some tips and tricks that I have learned to get the most um, quality and reliability from systems that have a lot of zones. And what I've noticed is people, once you start buying HEOS enabled products, it becomes addicting. You want one for the bedroom, one for maybe the master bathroom, one for the kitchen, and before you know it, between the receivers and all the options, you can quickly build a pretty elaborate multi-zone audio system. So to put it in perspective, this is actually my home. And if you look here, if you'll see that my main living area, my dining room, living room, and kitchen are one very large space. Now, one tip we always tell people who's ever thinking about doing wireless speakers is don't just use one big one. It is much better to fill a space like this using multiple speakers in multiple locations because they sync perfectly. You will not get any echo. Um, the reason why you do that is if you think about if you go to a restaurant, you want to have that music being played back at a level where you can still talk and entertain. So for passive environments, you want the sound to be evenly dispersed all the way across the room. So yes, I could have put one big 350 Denon Home 350 in the middle of the room, but if you were anywhere near it, it'd be too loud. But all the way over in the kitchen, it may not be loud enough. So you should always use multiples. If you look at my house, you'll notice that um, I have a vaulted ceiling, and below the hardwood floors is actually my bedrooms. So it's difficult to run wires to certain locations in this particular space. So it would be hard to run it from my theater, which is on the left side. My theater is actually located on the other side of this room where all my rack is. But trying to run wires, it's difficult because of these open beams and there's no way to go below. So wireless for certain parts of my home made perfect sense. So in the kitchen, I put a Denon Home 150. It's nice and compact. It tucks in right next to all of my appliances. And it works beautifully in that application. In the dining room, I put a Denon Home 250, that kind of wall that was on the far side of the view that you saw. And that actually is what I use for my dining room. In the living room, I have a Denon Home 350. So if I open up my sliding doors, I can have all four of these zones, which I normally have grouped together, playing at the same time. And it's easy to talk and entertain and cook and barbecue and hang out with friends. And the sound is very even and uniform. The bass is great because now I have multiple speakers, means you're going to have a much smoother bass response and less peaks and dips in the sound. So you end up with great bass. The speakers don't have to work very hard, and I don't have to yell if I'm sitting next to the 350 because I'm trying to blast it into the kitchen. So it's always better to use multiple wireless speakers instead of one big one. You will get a better experience. Two 150s instead of a 250 a lot of times will give you a better experience in a larger space. So please keep that in mind. And then finally, in on the deck, I have a pair of polk garnatrium speakers, and I couldn't run the wires all the way over there. So I mean, and I couldn't even run a Cat 5 all the way over there. So what I use is a HEOS amp to drive the speakers out on my deck, and it does beautifully. So if I have this large system, you also have to have great ways to interact with it. So the first thing we want to talk about is how do you interact and how do you control your HEOS enabled products? So the first thing is there's tons of different apps or control systems that you can utilize. And if you want to learn more about these, how you can utilize these third-party control systems with HEOS and Denon Emarant's products, if you go to our Sound United YouTube, it's Sound United Training on YouTube. we have a channel now, Sound United Training. If you look that up in YouTube, we have a session that we covered, that we did at CEDIA with URC and Josh AI, talking about utilizing third-party control systems and voice with Denon and Marantz receivers as well as HEOS products. So if you're looking for a lot more detail on that, that is a great thing that you should actually listen to or check out. In addition to third-party control systems, we can also use voice control. Amazon Alexa, Siri, Google Assistant, as well as Josh AI. So if you want it, so regardless of whether you want to use your third-party control system, or you want to use your voice, or you want to use the HEOS-enabled app, we have a solution for you. Now, there's lots of different ways to control an HEOS-enabled product. So first, you have the app. Next, after that, if you have to sometimes use what's called Spotify Connect. What that is if you look at the app, you'll see there's a Spotify logo up at the top over here. But that Spotify, when I click on that, it will take me to a different window and it will open up Spotify Connect. That's just how Spotify has chosen to utilize or design their system, is they want to have that capability of of um of sending you to their application. That is just everybody that has Spotify built into their services have that. That's just the way it is laid out. The next thing that we just announced is that a lot of our products that are HEOS enabled are Roon tested. And Roon tested is just another great way to interface with your products. So the Denon Home speakers we talked about, as well as the Denon AVRs, are Roon tested, and they stream through AirPlay 2. Now, there's three parts to Roon. There's going to be a core, which is where you keep all of your music and is like kind of the gatekeeper of your streaming content. A control, which could be an app, and then an output, which is a Roon tested or Roon ready device. So we're going to really get into detail with this a little later, but I do want to actually show you how Roon actually works and how you could actually go in and utilize it real quickly. So let me go in here, and I need to mirror my phone again. I'm gonna mirror my iPad actually. iOS device. So if I go here, so what I'm going to do here is I am going to mirror my iPad. So this is actually my iPad, which is one of the devices that I use as a controller in my Roon system. So if I go here, this is actually oh, come here. This is actually the Roon interface. Come on, come on, come on. And it's accessing my core that is in my house. And what I like about Roon is I have thousands and thousands and thousands of songs on my hard drive on my media PC, as well as a variety of different music sources, streaming sources. Roon will take not only all of my download music, but also it also collects and looks at two of the music services that I have, Qobuz and Tidal, which can offer CD quality audio, and I can actually pick between those particular services. So the first thing is like an overview, and this actually shows all of my music plus based on what I've been listening to, other albums I may be interested in. If I pick Bob Marley and I hit play, it'll look and see if it's part of my system. If it isn't, it will actually play the same. It'll find a Bob Marley on Qobuz or Tidal. Another thing that's neat about it is based on what you're listening to, it kind of comes up with a magazine. It kind of looks at what you're listening to and what you like, and kind of makes a customized magazine based on the things that you have played along the way. So it makes it really easy for you to explore music more and look through all of the different services. Now, as I said, the music services are actually available. People ask me a lot about how do I get HEOS Qobuz on a HEOS product. Well, if you have a HEOS enabled AVR, or a Denon Home product, if you have the Roon interface running, you can actually enjoy Qobuz on those Denon and Marantz products. So if I click at the bottom here, you'll see that it will actually bring up all of my different devices that are in my room, and I have my own volume controls, and I have all of my different devices. One of the nice things about Roon is it actually is almost like a gatekeeper. So whether a customer has a variety of different products, not only HEOS enabled, but if they have Apple AirPlay 2 or Chromecast products, all that stuff, it actually can be accessed from here. So I can easily incorporate multiple systems in one with one simple to use user interface. All right, so let me come out of that. Close that. So let's go back here and go back into the thing. So like I said, you have a core, which is your computer NAS drive or third-party media player, and that's where that organizes all your content. You have a controller, smart computer, smart device, iPhone, Android phone device, and then you have an output and the players, which are the things that it plays out of, and that's Roon tested or Roon ready devices. So Marantz, this is a list of Marantz Roon tested. You can see there's a pretty extensive amount of product, as well as the Denon Roon tested devices. Basically, newer Denon and Marantz network AVRs and network media players. In addition, there are Roon ready and Roon tested. We'll talk more about that next week. There's a difference between them. Roon tested means they're tested by Roon and the manufacturer to be compatible, and Roon ready devices are devices that run the Roon operating system itself. But if you look here, there's a tremendous amount of manufacturers that support Roon. So you could take a product from each one of these manufacturers, and they will all work well together. So if a person already has a pair of HEOS speakers, or he's thinking about getting a pair of HEOS speakers, and he had some stuff that ran off of AirPlay or off of Chromecast, well, all of that can be easily consolidated and organized in a great way. So you have all this music that is available and easy to access. Now, one of the things that's nice about Roon is everything that's available when you on a Roon that's Roon tested on a Roon tested device will be CD quality or above, depending on the player's capabilities. So we're already saying that before you used to have to sacrifice performance for convenience. If you wanted a ton, thousands, actually it says thousands, millions of songs available in high quality. Before it used to be millions of songs available, but MP3. So you were sacrificing your quality and the performance for the convenience of having all access to all of those songs. Now, with the increase in bandwidth capabilities, internet speeds, as well as the as new streaming services, you can now enjoy CD quality and above from a variety of services, and you can easily distribute this high quality music throughout your home wirelessly if you plan accordingly. So right here, we talk about Tidal, Qobuz, and Amazon Music HD are three examples of services that offer CD quality and above when it comes to streaming services. But to maximize that performance, you need to do a few things in order to maximize your performance. The first thing is you need to go into the apps, and you need to adjust the applications to give you the best quality. Most applications are going to default at a lower resolution or a lower quality, because just to make sure that it streams seamlessly and interruption free on any Wi-Fi network. But you want to go in and make sure that you modify your devices in order to get the most out of them. So if I go here, let me go back, and we'll bring up my phone now under under here. Bring up my phone. So now I'm going to go to my phone, and I'll show you what I mean where you could find these. Each service has its own location that you're going to have to go to find. Okay, rescan. So each service has a location in the settings menu that you will need to go to in order to find that particular setting. So for example, the first thing you need to do is go into your music service, your HEOS music service. And if you go in, you'll notice you'll see a large amount of devices. Oh, by the way, this is the 15 zones that are in my house, and this is something that came up. A receiver, or a pre-pro, my AV8805 is one device on a HEOS network. I have 15 devices. Okay, later. I have 15 devices, but I can have multiple zones. So of the 15 devices, one of the devices is my theater, my AV8805. I can have 3 zones connected, but all 3 zones in that AVR are coming from one source because it's one device. So hopefully everybody understands that. Now, if I go into here, you'll see that there's a little settings icon. If I go to my devices, you need to go in, and we talk about the fact that some zones are passive zones and some zones are active zones. So say I'm listening to music on a 150 in the kitchen, I may leave that set to normal quality. But my theater, you want to go in and set the quality to high. So you'll see here there's 2 settings, normal and high. I have it set to high. So the first thing you need to do is set the device to high. Say, I want the highest quality available from the service I am going to be utilizing. The next thing that you need to do is you need to go to each particular service. So if I go to Amazon Music HD in the application, you'll see that there is a settings icon as well. So if I hit the settings icon in here, it is going to ask me about different things, streaming quality, streaming preferences. So if I go to streaming quality, I have it set to best available for Wi-Fi and mobile. If you do mobile, make sure you have a pretty good data plan. If not, you may want to drop that. But in the house specifically, every time you're on Wi-Fi in your home, it should definitely be best available. Okay. Another thing too, you'll notice down here there's a button called loudness normalization. Turn that off. You do not want that on. Basically, what that does is that takes every track that's being played and sets them at the same loudness level. Basically, you're doing a little bit of compression of the dynamics. So if you want the dynamics, which are found in higher resolution, higher quality stuff, the impact, leave the loudness normalization turned off. So that's going to give you the best quality. And every single app has whether it's Tidal, Spotify, or even this application, have those particular selections. So if I go back here, and we go back to, I hate when it does that. There we go. So if I go back to the slide here, you'll see that Amazon, whether it's Amazon Music HD, Tidal, or Qobuz, or even Spotify, or all the services, somewhere in the menu, they will ask you these questions. What quality do you want your mobile streamed at? What quality do you want your Wi-Fi streamed at? And whether or not you want loudness normalization on. Always disable loudness normalization. And for Wi-Fi, always pick the highest one available to make sure that you get the maximum that your system, whether it's a HEOS system or anybody else's system, can possibly offer you. All right. So as I was mentioning, we have all these high quality streams. So now I went in and I said I want my HEOS system to give me the highest quality, and I want my streaming services to send out the highest quality. Well, that's going to increase the bandwidth dramatically. And that puts a load on your systems. So there are some tips that you can do during setup to make sure that you get the most from your particular streaming music or wireless music or multi-zone. So first thing, multi-zone music. We want to maximize the performance of multi-zone music. So the best way to improve network reliability is to use a wire. So if you have the opportunity to connect it physically, use a wire. A wired connection is always going to give you the highest reliability and the best performance. in my rack behind me, I have right there with the 4 lights on it, right? I have a 26 port Luxel switch, and all of the devices that are in that rack are connected to that switch because I have not only do I have my HEOS drive in there, I have my receiver, which means I have 5 zones or 5 device zones in that rack, plus an Apple TV, plus a Roku, plus a PlayStation, plus a network PC, plus a networked Blu-ray player, plus a networked media music player. So there's a tremendous amount of sources in that rack, and now the router is right above it. The Wi-Fi router is right above it, but you want to use it physically connected. No router has 15 connections or that I would need, so always just use a switch. That way you get the best sound quality possible and the most reliability. So if you can connect it to a switch, connect it to a switch. Plug it, put the switch next to the equipment, run the wire from the router to the switch and plug everything in the switch, and that will help you dramatically. As I mentioned, I have 15 zones in my house. 5 of the zones are wired. The other 10 are wireless. So let's talk about what we can do to get the most out of those wireless zones now. The first thing you need to do is you need to do a speed test. You need to see what the speed is, what the download speed, what type of bandwidth is coming into the house, and what type of bandwidth can I receive over the wireless network. So in my house, I average around 217, 220, 250 in internet speeds. I know a lot of you guys now are laughing because you guys are at gigabit speed, but I'm at about 250, which is pretty darn good. And when I run wireless, depending on the time of day, it can be anywhere from 120 to 180 80 megabits per second. So if I go in here, there's lots of applications you can use to test Wi-Fi speed. So if I go here and I use what's called speed test. It's a very common one. It's a free application. And I can check my Wi-Fi speed at this time. Now, both my kids are up playing on their tablets, as well as my wife is working. But if you look here, I am at about 152. So that's pretty good. Now I can look here and I can bring up my Google Wi-Fi, which will tell me the speed coming into the house. And I can see that if I view my history, my speed is normally between 220 to or right around 220 is about what my average speed is. So if I looked at that other test, that Wi-Fi test here, and I saw that it was 60 or 80, that tells me that there's an issue going on with my Wi-Fi network, and I probably need to update my infrastructure. So if I go back here, so if you see a huge difference between your wired and wireless, it's probably the fact that your wireless network system is lacking. And there's some things you can do to improve its speed. So the first thing is never, ever, 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 ever use the router that comes from the internet service provider, the ISP router. Don't ever use it. Never, never, never. And there's a reason why they give it to you for free, because it's okay for accessing the internet, but it's just not capable of handling the large amount of devices that are on many networks. So even though they gave it to you, tell them thank you. Maybe use it only as a cable modem, but definitely do not use it as part of your Wi-Fi solution. Before I continue on, let's see if there's any questions on the stuff we've already talked about that I can answer. So, do we have any questions, Jen or Jim, that need to be covered?
The only one that I'm not sure on is whether or not we can use Amazon Music on Roon. I could not figure out a way to add it onto my Roon, but I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, Amazon Roon services are going to be Qobuz and Tidal. and there's also some internet radio options as well as streaming. Um, that's one of the benefits of having why you want to have both the HEOS interface and the Roon interface. If there was something that you really wanted that was on Amazon Music HD, which is by the way the largest of all of the music services, then you would go and start it with using the HEOS application. But yeah, it's not really part of Roon. Our goal is to play well with others and to give you variety of options. So whether you want to control it with your Josh AI, your HEOS application, or Roon, we offer you that stuff. So the advantage of Roon is you get Cobuzz. The advantages of the HEOS app is you get Amazon Music HD. So there's benefits to both, and that is why we support both. Okay, so that is actually a very good question, Jim. Okay, all right.
You can
So
thank Ryan. Ryan asked the
Ryan,
question.
thank you, Ryan. So we were just talking about the fact that that little router they give you works pretty well if you just have a laptop on it. But when you start trying to utilize it for streaming, it doesn't really work really well because there's two different types of streaming protocols. And most of these little cheap routers are designed to work really well with a basic TCP, which is used for web browsing. So worst comes to worst, you get a slow buildup of a web page. The web page takes a little bit longer for the photographs to build. Now, that is you could deal with that. I mean, if it takes a website taking 20 seconds to load versus 15 seconds, it's a pain, but it's not noticeably bad. But if you go to something like music, when you run out of bandwidth or you have problems, bad communication, bad Wi-Fi means audio outs. So things drop out, and that is annoying. So people do not like audio dropouts. They're far more distracting and they're far more noticeable than a slow website buildup. So normally web browsing is done using TCP and AV streaming is UDP. And when you're using UDP devices, you want great Wi-Fi coverage and good bandwidth because those dropouts are annoying and noticeable. Now, the other thing too is these little ISP routers only have one antenna, and what that one antenna does is it takes turns because it only has one antenna. It can only service one device at a time, and a lot of times it can only handle a total of 15 connections max. And that may seem like a lot, a couple of cell phones and a computer, maybe a TV. But a lot of homes now, because of all of these smart devices, Internet of Things type of solutions, have a tremendous amount of devices in it. So whether you have a bunch of phones, a couple of iPads, a couple of computers, um, a, a game controller, your TV, wireless speakers, wireless cameras, a Nest thermostat, or a net a networked. I have a smart door lock to get in and out of the house. Those devices grow rapidly, and you can run out of space pretty quickly. If you think about it, the rack behind me, this rack behind me has 15, close to 15 things in it, and I haven't even gotten to the Amazon pucks in the house, the multiple zones, my kids' iPads, my iPad, my work laptop, my work desktop, my media PC, my wife's desktop PC, my wife's work PC, my daughter's PC, my son's gaming computer. As you can see, you can run out of devices pretty quickly. So, and as I said, these ISP routers also only have one antenna, which means all the devices have to adapt to the slowest connection. Because basically what it does is if I have multiple devices, it actually sends data to device A, then it sends it to device B, then device C, then device D, one at a time. Better routers utilize MIMO, or actually multi-user MIMO, multi-user, multiple in, multiple out, multiple user technology. And that allows it to service multiple devices simultaneously. So the best way to think of it is this. If I have a one-lane highway and grandma is going 12 miles an hour, everybody else behind grandma is going 12 miles an hour waiting for grandma to go down the road. So if I have an older device on my network with slow Wi-Fi capability, when that device is going to slow everybody else down. Better routers, which use multiple in, multiple out, multiple user capabilities, basically think of it as a three-lane highway. So it can service multiple devices simultaneously, which means if grandma is driving or grandpa is driving really, really slow, he can go over to the slow lane and the faster products can go into the fast lanes. You end up with much, much better quality this way. And the way you could see this, by the way, is if I take an inexpensive router that is only has one antenna, and I have one laptop, and I do a speed test on both devices, the using the inexpensive ISP router and the better router, and it's one device, the speed would be the same, 200. But if I put 8 devices on there, the cheap ISP router that they gave you instead of 200 may only be 60, while the faster, better MIMO device may be at 180. So it really starts to matter as you add more devices to have multiple in, multiple out, multiple user technology built into your router. Spend the money. We spend a lot of time doing on our Wi-Fi, utilizing it for everything from streaming music to work to WebExes like I'm doing here. And you need to make sure that you have that all of the different devices are being serviced simultaneously. Even in this room right now, I have all that stuff running. We are having a WebEx, which I hope looks pretty good. My son is right over here playing on his iPad. I'm using my tablet and my iPhone to do demonstrations for you. On this side of the room, I have a TV on that's streaming the WebEx so I can see what you're seeing. And that's just going on in this room. No telling what's going on with my wife and my daughter right now with all the stuff they're looking at. So if you want great service, you need to have a great router. That's the biggest thing that I noticed. And the way that I figured it out was I was paying for high speed, 200 over 200 megabits per second in internet speed, but whenever I ran a speed test, it only said 60 or 70. The second I upgraded my router, it went up to 200. So it does make a huge difference. Okay, so keep that in mind. The next thing you want to do is there's multiple channels in Wi-Fi, and there's 13 channels in 2.4 gig, and there's also multiple channels in 5 gig. There's a lot of other people that are using Wi-Fi all around you, and you want to make sure that if you can, you want to put your Wi-Fi devices on channels that are being that the other people are not utilizing, so you're not all fighting for the same wavelengths. So the way you could do that is there's lots of speed test applications. The one that I like is called Wi-Fi Analyzer Premium. It cost me like $3. And the nice thing about it is I can look here and based on the particular, I can see where the stuff lives on my network. Now you notice on 5 gig, which is where you should put your stuff, there's not a lot of traffic. So it's the best place to put your content, your streaming devices. It doesn't have the same range, so you definitely need maybe access points and a mesh network in order to make sure you have more coverage, but there's less traffic. If I go to 2.4, there's a whole lot more traffic here. My devices plus my neighbor's My Spectrum Wi-Fi, his NG Hub, there's a DirecTV device in here somewhere broadcasting. So you can see there's a lot more devices here. Most of the time it's 1, 3, and 9 that don't have much overlap. So you look at 3 would be a good channel, and 9 would be a good channel. 6 has got a lot of stuff on it because that's where I put my stuff. Okay, So you can see here, you can find these particular which channels offer the most available space, and if you can set your router to utilize that, you should absolutely do it. And that needs to be done inside of the router. So if I continue on, in the router, the first thing you need to do, if you have a router that would do it, you can go in and you can set your channel. You can say, I want this channel, channel 6, channel 3, channel 9, and set it to stay there. A lot of routers actually have what's called auto mode, where the system will jump between channels looking for the best available space. A lot of times when you do that, when the router does that, you may get an audio dropout, or it may take a while for the app to come back, or when you hit the HEOS app, you go, why does the HEOS app take so long to load today? Because it probably jumped the channel. So if you set it to a fixed channel, the app is more responsive. It opens faster because it knows where to go every single time, and each device responds quicker, and you're less likely to have dropouts. So pick a channel, stick to the channel if you can. My mesh network, unfortunately, will not allow me to do it. I have a Google Wi-Fi, which still moves around. And that's one of the reasons why I'm thinking about going to a more professional solution, which would be a Luxel router with my 26 port switch and Luxel access point. So I have a lot more control over how I set up my particular system. The next thing, there's different types of encryption. Choose the AP2 PSK. The other ones actually will slow down your Wi-Fi speed. I did not know this until one of my partners in Amsterdam, who's kind of a Wi-Fi fanatic, actually told me about this. So you definitely want to turn it to that particular encryption, because he noticed that using the old web encryption actually slowed down the internet speed by 80%. You're paying for 200 or you're paying for a gig, you want your gig, right? Or you want your 200. So make sure so this is just a simple tip that most of us that did not know, that I did not know. The next thing, you have what's called the UPnP. A lot of times that is switched off um, as a default on many ISP routers. Switch that on. If it's on, the volume control responds quicker, and the grouping time to group devices, your 3 rooms or 2 rooms, it's quicker. When it's off, the volume control is going to be sluggish, and the grouping time could take longer. So this is another quick tip to make your HEOS app much more responsive. The next thing you need to consider that we also talk about is, even if you pick a channel that is not being utilized by your neighbor's Wi-Fi network, there's a lot of other devices that live in that 2.4 gigahertz frequency range. And that includes baby monitors and cordless phones and security cameras, hearing aids, Bluetooth devices. Oh, and by the way, if you have a wireless speaker system that utilizes its own internal mesh, it seems like a great idea, because back in the days, about when the system was developed 10 years ago, Wi-Fi networks were bad. So having a mesh network its own little mesh network was a good idea. Now Wi-Fi is very good with all the different routers and access points. But so what you would end up with is your Wi-Fi network fighting with your baby monitor, your cordless phones, your security cameras, your hearing aid, your Bluetooth device, your doorbell, your Nest thermostat, and your mesh wireless audio system. This is why on our HEOS, we actually utilize the Wi-Fi network, because it gives you a lot more control. The first thing you want to do is if whenever possible, you want to use the 5 gig band. So, because if you look here, like I just showed you, there's not as much traffic in the 5 gig. Now, like I said, it does require more. The cover doesn't have the range of 2.4. 2.4 has 10 times the range of a 5 gig system. But if you use a mesh network or wireless access points, you have no problem getting a good 5 gig coverage throughout your entire home, front yard, and backyard. So HEOS devices actually allow you to we'll use either the 2.4 or the 5 gig band. It automatically will always try to default to the 5 gig. It will only drop down to the 2.4 when the 5 gig is not available. Another tip, name them both the same thing. In my house, my 2.4 and my 5 gig is called Tori. So, and it has the same password. So that it's easier for the system to move up and down. Okay, so do that as well. So always choose 5. Many services, many wireless systems, unless they are that are mesh, you only get one option, 2.4. But if our system HEOS, you can go to 5. The next thing you have to think about is router placement. This is important. If I put a router in routers can go through doors and open spaces very well, but it's blocked by walls. A lot of times Wi-Fi can be blocked by walls because you have drywood with insulation. Drywall with insulation on an apartment, metal studs. All that stuff has an impact on your Wi-Fi coverage. So sometimes what you can do is just by moving your see these dead spots, just by moving your router to a different location, almost like line of sight where it can go through doors, you actually end up with more better coverage. So you can actually move your router around to find the right placement. So, and I did that with when I had my old router. Now I have a mesh network, and I have these little pucks, and I moved them around my house until I got the best coverage around my house. So there are applications that you can buy on your laptop, or you can get for free on your laptop or on your mobile device to check the internet strength of your room and find out where your dropouts are. The other way that you can do it, built into the HEOS app, is actually the ability to check network status. So let's go do that real quick. So I can go
Hey,
into the
Phil,
HEOS app. Yes.
before you do that, we got a question, and I'm sure that this is not the only person that wants to know. Do you have
Mhm.
any recommendations on good routers for AV streaming?
Um, I have, like I said, most of the mesh ones that are available work really, really well. So that's the Orbeez and the Google Wi-Fi's, like which is what I use. If you want a more traditional router, you want a Linksys as well as Netgear. Look for the ones that say MIMO. So that's multi-user, multi-in, multi-out. Or if you want even more control, something like a professional router, like um, a Luxel would be a great solution because they give you they're more focused for the custom integration market, and they offer a lot of controls. So Luxel's a great brand. We use a lot of Luxel. Jim will tell you that in 90% of our trade shows and events, we use Luxel, but there's also great devices from Netgear and Linksys as well. But make sure you get a good professional router. Spend Expect to spend about $300, if you 300 to 400 bucks. But remember, how often do you use your Wi-Fi? You get a good one because it's going to basically control the performance of all the other stuff you paid for. So definitely spend a little bit more and get a better router.
Another
All right.
mesh one is Eero. Thanks, Mike.
Eero. Yeah, Eero's another one is too. I'll show you a couple of them at the end, but all of the mesh networks are very, very good. There's lots of, and I'll show you some of the ones, and Eero is one of the ones that we've tested that works well with HEOS as well. So if you look here, you'll see that there's a thing called help on my device. If I hit help, I can go to check my system and go to network status. And what this will show me is, as you can see, my theater is wired. It'll show me every single device in my house and whether the signal strength is good or not. Now, it just says excellent. For you geeks out there, it'll actually even give you the number. Basically, minus 40 dB is and lower is excellent. So minus 40, minus 20, minus 10, that type of stuff is great. As the number goes higher, actually, it's funny. As you go, the lower the number, the higher the quality. So if you look here, minus 43 is 100% quality. If I go to minus 42, it's 97% quality. So you want the lower the higher the negative number, the lower the bandwidth. So for most people, they just prefer to look at it um, and see the excellent, 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 excellent. It'll also, like I said, will show you what channel is being utilized. So this is all on 5. Most of this is being utilized on 5 gig, and I see that it's using channel 149 and on my 5 gig network for my speaker called Tori. And the reason for that is if I go here and I scan, I just hit living room, and what it will do is it'll look at the living room and it'll show me every device that my living room HEOS, my living room Denon Home 250 can actually see. So I can see the band, all the different services that it's actually could see in here. So if I go to descending, I can see that the NG Hub, which is my next door neighbor, which is literally probably 25, not even that, 15 feet across from me. But yeah, we don't have much of a yard on that side of the house. His service is almost as strong as my service, so I can actually see those particular devices. So this is nice. You can buy an app that has this. You can buy an app on your phone or your mobile device or your PC that does this, but it's really nice to have it built into into the HEOS app. So before, I just basically took a HEOS 1 that has a battery on it, and I walked around the room and I placed it in different locations in my house. And then I checked the quality and signal strength. And then I can find out, I can literally map my house on where I had good strength and bad strength just by using my HEOS 1 with the battery pack as a tester. I can do the same thing with a HEOS 150. I just have to plug it in each particular location I go to. So this is a great tool to find out if you have any dead spots or any issues with your coverage. All right, so here. So this is actually great. So it'll show you the wireless and the range and the signal strength. Few tips if you're trying to increase the signal strength: never use a Wi-Fi repeater. Bad, 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 bad. Wi-Fi repeaters basically they'll cut your bandwidth in half. So say you had 200 in my house. I had one of these downstairs. It would be 200 upstairs. I would be lucky to get 100 downstairs using the Wi-Fi repeater. The next thing is the Wi-Fi repeater required that I had a second SSD, a second identification or name. So upstairs was Tori, downstairs was Marley. And when I walked downstairs with a laptop or my tablet, it had to switch from the Tori network to the repeaters Marley network each time, which of course could affect your cause video dropouts, audio dropouts, and the list goes on and on. So do not use repeaters. If you have need for more coverage, use access points. So this is kind of the way I'm going to go: a Luxo Epic 3 router to a 26 port switch, and 2 or 3 Luxo access points, one upstairs, one downstairs, one close to the backyard so I can feed the backyard. This is one solution. And if a house is already pre-wired for Cat 5, it is an easy solution. Or if you're doing a retrofit and you're doing new construction, to be able to pull that new Cat 5 or Cat 6, this is a great solution for you. If not, mesh routers are a great solution. I utilize the older Google Wi-Fi system right now, and all of these work really, really well. And if you need more coverage, you just buy one more puck, and you can continue to expand till you get the coverage you're looking for. So check your coverage, because that's 90% of the time. This will solve that. And by switching from my old router to this, my Wi-Fi speed went from 60 to 200 or close to 200, which is pretty close to what's coming out of the wall. So that is pretty quick. One more thing, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. We've done sessions with cable companies and companies like Luxo and Josh AI for custom integration. There's a lot of interesting information here. We just started this. So if you're looking for more detailed information, please subscribe to the Sound United training channel. Again, thank you guys for your time. It's always great for you to spend this time with you. And hopefully you have picked up one or two tricks or one or two tips that you may not have thought about or known about in this particular session. And I would like to thank you for your time, and I will talk to you soon.